Imagine waking up one morning and the sun is gone. Not hidden behind clouds. Not dimmed by eclipse. Gone. No warning. No explosion you can hear. Just darkness where light used to be. And in that single instant, everything on Earth begins to change. At first, nothing feels real. Your eyes still expect daylight. Your body still follows routine. But within seconds, confusion spreads across the planet. The sky, once blue and alive, turns into a frozen black dome filled with distant stars that were never visible in daylight. It feels like night, but it is not night. It is something far more unnatural, because the sun is not just light. It is gravity, and the moment it disappears, Earth is released from its invisible leash. For about 8 minutes and 20 seconds, nothing seems to happen. That is how long sunlight normally takes to reach us. But after that delay, the truth arrives. Earth is no longer held in orbit. It begins moving in a straight line, drifting into the coldness of space like a ship cut loose from its anchor. Oceans do not freeze instantly, but the change begins. Without solar energy, the planet starts losing heat at a terrifying rate. Cities that were warm just moments ago begin to cool. Power grids struggle as demand spikes and systems fail one by one. Communication satellites drift. Navigation systems lose stability. The modern world, built on precision and balance, starts to collapse into uncertainty. Within hours, panic spreads, not just because of darkness, but because of silence. The sun has always been the background rhythm of life. Without it, even sound feels different, as if the planet is holding its breath. Animals react first. Nocturnal creatures become confused, emerging at the wrong time. Birds stop migrating patterns mid-flight. Livestock become restless, sensing something deeply wrong in the environment they have always trusted. As temperatures continue to fall, human survival becomes the only priority. People gather light source. If the sun suddenly disappeared, Earth would immediately fall into unnatural darkness and lose its primary source of light and energy. If the sun suddenly disappeared, the first and most immediate change would be the sudden loss of light across the entire Earth. They would not slowly fade into night as it usually does. Instead, everything would shift almost instantly into complete darkness after a short delay of about 8 minutes, which is the time sunlight normally takes to reach our planet. Until that moment, people would still see sunlight as if nothing had changed, unaware that the source of all brightness had already vanished. But once that delay passes, the world would be plunged into an unfamiliar blackness that feels deeper than any natural night. Streets, cities, oceans, and skies would lose their definition, and even familiar places would feel completely alien. The human brain, which depends heavily on visual information, would struggle to process this sudden absence of light, creating confusion and fear. Artificial lights would become the only visible sources, but they would feel weak and temporary compared to the natural daylight that once covered everything. This instant shift would not just change what people see, it would change how they experience reality itself. Time would feel distorted, safety would feel uncertain, and the entire world would seem as if it had been cut off from something essential that was always taken for granted. After about 8 minutes, Earth would stop being held in orbit and begin drifting through space in a straight line. After the disappearance of the sun, the next phase of reality would begin silently, but aggressively, the breakdown of Earth's balance in space. For the first few minutes, people would not feel anything unusual beyond darkness, but in space, Earth would already be drifting. The planet is held in orbit by the sun's gravity, and without it, Earth would no longer follow its curved path. Instead, it would move forward. Without solar energy, global temperatures would rapidly drop, causing ecosystems, weather systems, and human infrastructure to start failing. As the sun disappears, the next major impact would be a rapid and dangerous drop in temperature across the entire planet. Without the constant energy input from sunlight, Earth would begin to lose heat in a space much faster than it could regain it. At first, the change would seem slow, almost unnoticeable, but within hours, the difference would become severe. Warm air would start to feel heavy and lifeless, and indoor environments would quickly begin to cool despite insulation and heating systems. Oceans, which store vast amounts of thermal energy, would delay the freezing process, but their surface layers would gradually begin to solidify in extremely cold regions. The atmosphere itself would start to behave differently as temperature drops affect pressure systems, disrupting winds and weather patterns that normally depend on solar heating. Human survival would become increasingly difficult as heating resources become strained and energy grids fail under pressure. Even breathing would feel different in extreme cold, as air becomes denser and harsher. Plants would immediately stop photosynthesis, meaning food chains would begin collapsing from the very base. This chain reaction would not only affect nature, but also human agriculture, livestock, and global food supply. In a world without the sun, cold would not just be discomfort. It would become a silent, expanding force that reshapes every living system on Earth. Animals and humans would become disoriented, leading to widespread confusion, panic, and collapse of normal daily life. As darkness and extreme cold spread, life on Earth would begin to react in ways that reveal how deeply it depends on the sun. Animals will be among the first to sense that something is wrong. Many species rely on daylight to guide their behavior, hunting, migration, and sleep cycles. The event would reveal how deeply life on Earth depends on the sun, showing the fragile balance that makes survival on our planet possible. At the final stage of this unimaginable event, humanity would be forced to confront a truth that is often ignored in daily life. Everything on Earth is part of a delicate system held together by the sun. Without it, survival would no longer be about progress or comfort, but about endurance in a collapsing environment. Energy sources would become the most valuable resource, yet even they would be temporary solutions against a long, expanding night. Human societies would begin to reorganize around survival rather than structure. In the modern world, built on stability, communication, and global connection, would fragment into isolated pockets of resistance against the cold and darkness. As time continues, hope would depend entirely on whether the sun returns or if any alternative source of energy could replace its role, which is nearly impossible on a planetary scale. The emotional weight of such a reality would be just as severe as the physical conditions. People would begin to understand how every moment of warmth, every breath of stable air, and every growing plant was connected to a single distant star that was always taken for granted. In this 24-hour disappearance, even if the sun came back, nothing would immediately return to normal. The shock to ecosystems, climate, and human systems would continue long after. But the most lasting impact would be awareness, the realization that life exists only because of an incredibly precise balance, and that balance can never truly be assumed or ignored again.